Hey everybody, so last video we talked about selecting a river. Hello, River King World Headquarters, how may I direct your call?
Guide Service Department, please.
I'm sorry, the guy that heads that department is currently in a video shoot. May I take a message?
Yes, I want to discuss some rates for a trip with me and my family.
Yes, he'd be happy to do that as soon as he gets done with his video.
You have a really great voice.
Well, that's why they have me answering the phones. I'm not good at paddling, so they just leave me in the office here.
Oh, well, it's a good fit.
Oh, well, thank you.
Very manly.
Thanks. I'm about 7 feet tall as well.
It sounds like it.
So, in the last video, we talked about selecting your river and doing the initial planning on how far you can go on the river and what kind of river you're looking for. Now that we've selected our river, which will be the new river this year, I'm going to go over the gear I'm selecting that'll support that trip from the start to the finish, from the boat to your camping gear, your clothing, your food and cookware, medical first aid, technical communications, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll also talk about finalizing your maps. So right off the bat, let's go ahead and start with kayaking gear. So obviously you're going to need a kayak. You're going to need a paddle. I always bring 2 paddles on a long trip in case I break one. This trip I'll take a helmet, a life jacket. I always have my deck bag to keep all my stuff on the top of the boat that I'm going to need throughout the day. A sponge water out, cleaning your boat out. This trip I'm going to take a throw rope in case I need to floss some of my friends out from the teeth of these rapids, so to speak. I'll have a small rope with a carabiner to tie the boats up, or to lock boats together, pull boats out and over, just depending on what you need. It's always a good thing to have. A spray skirt, a cockpit cover, a paddling jacket in case there's a cool day with some rain, and a paddling hat that's going to deflect the sun, because if you're going to stay out on these rivers all day for a week, you don't want to get sunburned. So that's really my kayaking gear. My boat is a Pre-On Yukon 145, and that's a kind of a special boat that was made to traverse the entire length of the Yukon River up in Canada and Alaska there. And so it's basically a whitewater boat that's about 14.5 feet long with a rudder that can paddle straight or do some pretty significant rapids. It's kind of really the only boat just like it in the world, and it suits my needs for these kind of trips. On some flat water, if it's just lakes or ocean or something, it would be a little slow for a week-long trip. My paddle is an Epic. It's very lightweight. It's about a $400 paddle. So while that's probably not going to be in the budget for everybody, it is a very nice thing to have. Keeps your shoulders and your arms from wearing out during the day. And you're going to do a lot of paddle strokes in a week. So having a nice paddle is a good thing. So get as nice a paddle as your budget will allow you to get. So we'll need the helmet and the life jacket on this river. It's always a good idea to have a life jacket. The helmet we'll need because there's some significant rapids in a few areas, and you don't want to smack your noggin on a rock and just be floating there in the river. So basically the camping gear I've selected will allow me to get down this river from Saturday to Saturday. So we got a 8-day period there, 2 half days, the beginning and the end, so really 7 days. But I'm going to need to get enough gear in that boat to support that trip. And what we have is at the midway point where we pick up our second half of the group, we'll have some stuff in the truck waiting for us at the portage there, so we can re-up some of the food, water, batteries, anything like that the guys are short on. We can make arrangements to have that at the portage. So it's not a truly self-supported trip, as we're going to have that little bit of support there in the middle. But I've done some week-long self-supports before where there wasn't a midway point to re-up the gear and food. So having a boat big enough to get all the gear in it to support your trip is a consideration. You don't want a 10-footer for a week-long trip. It's just going to be, you're going to have as much stuff on the top and the outside of the boat as you're going to have in the inside. And it's just not going to be the best fit for you. And moving on to camping gear. So camping gear is kind of a mixed bag because everybody camps a little different. I'll just go over what I'm bringing and why I'm bringing it. And so number one, I have my tarp, which is a Kelty 12-footer, Kelty Noah's Tarp 12, and my ridgeline and cordage to string that up. Right underneath that will be my war bonnet hammock, and I don't use a tent. I love a hammock. I sleep much better in it. I can set up in a whole lot less time. I can put up in very rugged, irregular terrain. I don't need just a camping pad, you know, that you would need for a tent. So I can pretty much camp anywhere and set up easier than a tent, and it's a little lighter and it's a lot more comfortable. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I use the hammock. This time of year it's going to be about 57 to 60 degrees at night each night according to the forecast, and so I'm not going to need a lot of heavy sleep system. So I'm not going to bring the quilts. This time I'm going to bring a whoopee and a light bag, and that should get me, you know, through the nights with a lot of ease. And what I can also do, and I'll talk about this a little later in clothing, is I'm going to bring a fleece beanie and some silk weight long johns, just some polyester long johns, and that'll keep you plenty warm at night during this time of the year. Now, I also bring an Eno hammock, and I keep that in my deck bag so that if I want to get out at lunch and just want a place to lay down for a minute, stretch out, take a little nap, lounge around, whatever, I don't have to get out my war bonnet, which is my sleeping hammock. So I can just take this Eno out, throw it up on a couple trees, get it dirty, get it wet, whatever happens is fine, pack it back up, move on down the river. And it's kind of a nice thing that we've been doing for a while. So I suggest it. You don't have to have one, but it's also a backup in case you you know, lose your first hammock, which I've seen on videos recently. It's pretty funny. I bring 2 headlamps. I don't bring any other light source, and I have pretty good headlamps. But I always bring 2 because if one goes down, you don't want to be completely out of light. So just bring 2 headlamps. They don't take up much space. You're not backpacking. This is a kayak trip, so you can afford the little weight. You'll never notice it. I always bring 4 chem lights for a variety of reasons. If you need to mark something at night, or you know, sometimes, you know, with my kids, I'll crack one and stick it up in the top of their hammock in their little net, or stick it in the tent so if they need to wake up to use the bathroom, or if they just wake up, it's not pitch black, it doesn't freak them out. There's always a little light there. But chem lights can be used to mark your boat traveling at night if you get into that situation. In an emergency, they can do a lot of things for you. So I bring 4 chem lights, varying colors if possible. I also bring a camp chair because if you sit in a kayak all day and you get to the shore, you set up your camp, you do not want to sit on the ground. It just wears you out. And so I've done a trip or 2 without one, and I was quoted as saying half my kingdom for a camp chair. I went out and bought one, a good one, as soon as the trip was over because I was just tired of trying to make wet sand work. So bring a camp chair. It'll make those times around the camp a lot more pleasurable for you. Also bring a 2-inch blade pocket knife, which is the only knife I'll bring, and it's really the only knife I found I've needed on pretty much every camping trip I've ever been on. You can use a big knife as a tool. You can use a big knife if you want to. You can take a big knife. You really don't need a big knife. You may want a big knife, or you may need a big knife to do certain things, but you don't usually actually need to do those certain things. So this is just something, I just need a little bitty pocket knife because I'm just going to be cutting cordage or filleting a fish, or maybe, you know, I don't know what you would need 6-7-inch blade for camping really. I'm not going to go splitting logs with my pocket knife. I'm not whacking down the forest. So I just need a little pocket knife, and that's all I take. I do bring a machete in the event that we get on some little overgrown island and need to clear out a little campsite. I've done that in the past. Don't do this on any private property or anybody's backyard or any national forest or anywhere where you are going to be disturbing property owners or destroying anyone's property. But with a machete, you can get on these little tiny islands that are just grown up in little, you know, gum trees, elder trees, willows, whatever they got on the islands. Just whack a few whacks on a couple trees, and you can have a nice place to hang a hammock. A lighter, I bring some lighters, bring about 8 lighters because I'm not in there to prove to anybody I can start a fire on a trip like this. If you want to do that, that's fine. But for me, I just bring an abundance of lighters. I get like an 8-pack, throw it in there, and you're always going to have a lighter when you need one. Just keep them in your dry bags because a wet lighter doesn't work. Bug spray. Bring some bug spray. Sometimes the rivers can get a little buggy at night. I don't know how it's going to be up there this time of year, so I would just err on the side of caution. Just bring some bug spray. And I always get the nylon safe type, so if you need to spray the bottom of your hammock or anything else, it's not going to eat away at your gear. Some of the DEET and some of the other ones can eat nylon, so be careful with your bug spray. Wet ones, for obvious reasons, you want to have some wet ones. Tent stakes, I do bring a couple tent stakes. In the winter I'll bring 6. In the summer I just bring 2. And these are some pretty heavy duty tent stakes that will not pull out of the ground. And mind you, I'm not backpacking, I'm kayaking, so I can afford a little more weight and a little more room. And most of the time I'll tie my tarp corners down to a low tree. With my super shelter, it's not a good fit for that, so I do need to take the stakes in the winter. In the summer I just take 2, just because I have my diamond formation. In case there's no little trees to tie off to, I can just stake it out to the ground and be done with it. And sunscreen. You're going to be on the river for a week. It's going to be summertime. Take some sunscreen. You don't want to get yourself blister burnt and really unenjoy your trip. And that takes me right into clothing. I'll always bring long pants, long sleeves of the quick dry variety because you can stay cool, but you can keep yourself from getting burnt. Sometimes you just want to be able to cover up your skin and roll on with it that way. So 2 pair of pants, 2 pair of shirts, and you can always roll the sleeves up, have short sleeve, and you can always zip off the pants, have shorts. And that's really all the clothing I bring, other than some silk weight long johns for camping at night, and a beanie. I'll bring a light jacket this time of year just in case you have a cool evening or a cool morning. You want a camp towel to dry off when you take a shower or your bath in the river. And a light packable rain suit is a good idea. Oftentimes kayakers will have a gasketed dry suit to keep them dry. The guys in my group don't have all that, so we just take a light rain suit that you can pack up and put away. And then paddling gloves. You're going to want paddling gloves to keep blisters off. Number 1 on my kitchenware list is an MSR ceramic water filter. And this is the pump style. Never fail you. You can see it working. It's a good thing to have. Also, we'll have a steri pen because that's a lot easier. So we find a little trickling, kind of waterfall kind of scenario where a little creek's coming in. We'll fill up all our lounging bottles there, do the steri pen. But that thing to me is it's brittle looking. It's got batteries, it's little electronics in there. If it drops and it breaks, you're out. A filter. So I always bring the ceramic filter as a backup to the steri pen. Also have 3 Nalgene bottles. That's usually enough water for me to get, enough water at a time to make it to either the end of the day or the next water source. A hydro flask, and that's just to keep my stuff cool, the cool drinks, and keep my warm coffee warm through the day. I do my water heating with a jet boil, and any cooking I'll need I can do off the jet boil. Also have a little canteen cup that I'll cook in, so I don't have to cook in my jet boil cup. Keep the jet boil cup to just water. I don't like cleaning it. If you burn stuff onto the bottom of your cup, it's really hard to get that out. But canteen cup is stainless steel, and it is a lot easier to just scrub and rigorously clean if you get something burnt onto there. I typically don't like to do a lot of cooking because that takes up a lot of my time, and I don't like it. And so I end up going with the freeze-dried food, or maybe I'll take some tin foil as a roll. I'll take that, so if I catch a fish, we can bread it up real quick and wrap that fish up and cook it in the tin foil. No cleaning. You got to throw that tin foil away. So I do have a little Ziploc bag of fish breading that I'll have with me, and that's good. Mostly though, I eat the Mountain House meals and MREs or some other kind of backpacker's pantry or some kind of freeze-dried meal is normally what I make most of my meals out of. and we'll plan to catch a couple restaurants down the river if possible. In this trip, I think we'll be able to do that at least 2 or 3 times. Then you want your snacks. You don't want to just have meal. You want your granola bars, Cliff Bars, applesauce, anything like that that makes the day happy for you. Just bring those little snacks, keep you going, keep your energy up. And then of course, coffee, tea, beverages, something other than water can be nice when you're on a long trip. Everybody seems to like coffee, so normally there'll be some coffee in the morning. That pretty much covers kitchen and cookware. I don't do a lot of cooking, as you know from my other videos. I like to just keep all that to a minimum. And so those of you may have different feelings on that. Just take what you need to support your trip. Medical first aid, of course, a good first aid kit. You may be pretty remote in some of these areas, so you don't want to just have Band-Aids and Bactine or something. You need a good first aid kit. So have that. I also have 2 medics in the group, which makes that easy for me. One of them is going to be carrying a combat lifesaver bag. So, pretty much any scenario up to, decapitation we'll probably be able to handle on the river there. A tourniquet. This is a good idea. You never know, especially if you get a machete or a saw or a hatchet. You get way out in the middle of one of these rivers in a gorge somewhere, and someone just has a moment of stupidity and they lay themselves open with some kind of accident with one of these cutting blades. You may need a tourniquet to stop that bleeding. So it's just a good idea to have a tourniquet with you. So take a good tourniquet down there on the river with you when you go. And then any needed medications that anybody in your party may need to have, make sure they brought those. Personally, I don't need any medication. I've done trips even to Alaska with a friend of mine who's a diabetic, and he always had to have his insulin. That sort of thing. Just make sure if the guys need medication that it's there, it's on the trip, and ask them about it before you leave, because you don't want to get out there and have a medical emergency that you could have avoided. So now we're on to technology, maps, electronics, that sort of thing. Number 1 on the list is a little distress beacon, and I can just pop this thing open real easy and hit this button, and they're sending people to my location right then and there. Just make sure this stays with you and doesn't float down the river, because they'll be looking for this thing. And these are good to have. There's a couple different brands out there. A couple of the brands are better than the others, so do your research, figure out what you want this thing to be able to do for you. If you're looking for a way to let everybody know where you are, constantly updating on your trip, this particular one's not the one you want. If you want one that's actually going to be able to get you out of a pinch, this one is the one you want. So do that research. Don't just rely on what everyone else is using. Find out what actually works and what's the best going. So that brings us to maps. You've heard me talk a lot on Google Earth about maps and how you can map your trip out. Now we just need to turn that from something you have on your computer to something you can use on the river. Don't rely on your phone or something else like that. You need a paper map laminated to be sure you can navigate your way down this river and know where you are. Now of course the river runs one way and you're going to be on the river, so you're not going to be truly lost. But if you want to keep up with where you are and be able to forecast where you're going and how long it's going to take to get there, you need a paper map. So the way to do that is to get on your Google Earth, pull your trip up, and here's the new river trip. Get an eye altitude down here in the bottom right corner of around 20,000 feet. You can go zoomed out further, and I'll do that for an overview map, maybe 4 overview maps, 4 pictures of just a gross overview. Then zoom in to about 20,000 feet. If you get closer than that, you have too many maps and it's too much detail. If you get further away, it can be too little detail and you just it doesn't tell you anything. Yeah, you can see the curvature of the river, but you can't see there's an island here, there's fields, there's woods. So around 20,000 feet eye altitude, and start at the beginning of the trip, take a picture, find your best angle to get as much river as you can on that particular map. Or you can keep it north up in every map if that confuses you. But I have it to where I can see the compass, which is north, and I just make a diagonal with my river on the map so I can get as much map on each shot as possible. And then just track, okay, see this little field with this house, that's on the end of where I'm going that day. Make sure you can see that at the beginning of the next map. And you just got to double side print those and laminate them. You can have them laminated at any print shop. Print these things right off your computer. Any kind of paper is what you need. You don't have anything special. The lamination will make it pretty hardy. So I've been doing these on all the river trips I've done for the last several years, and I have a whole library of these guys, and they're really a good tool. I use them on the river. I use them all day, every day. I know exactly where I'm at on that river at all times. I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm passing. I know it. That's how you keep up with where you're at. Now you can rely on electronic technology. It will fail you sooner or later, be it you can't see the satellites through clouds or some other issue. Go ahead and have your non-technical map ready. It'll save you in a pinch. E-Trex. I do have my maps, but I carry a Garmin E-Trex, and I have it mounted on the deck of my kayak, so it's a little dashboard of sorts, and I have it the trip computer on with the screen set to on all day. So at all times I can see how fast I'm traveling, how far I'm traveling, the speed of the river as I float. If I want to track that, if I just stop paddling, how fast am I floating? That'll let you start forecasting all that. And like I say, a group's going to move at about 2 miles an hour. Unless they're a really high-speed group, then you can bump that up. But for an all-day speed with no current, 2 miles an hour, if I float and just see how fast the river's going, and I get a couple different estimates, say the river's going at 2 miles an hour, I know that comfortably we'll be able to make 4 miles an hour without really trying that hard, because it's not hard to go 2 miles an hour. And say if we need to go 4 more miles before we get to lunch, and we're going 4 miles an hour, I know we'll be there in about an hour. Keeps everybody up to date in the group, but how fast have I been moving? How long have I been moving? How many miles have we moved today? It'll track your whole river trip in miles. So it'll track all that for you, and it's just a tool I like to have with me on my trips. Cell phone. It's just good business to have a cell phone. Have a way to keep that thing charged. You want your camera, whatever camera system you're using, make sure you have that, and any protective housing to protect that in transit or at night or in a rainstorm. Depending on whatever your camera is, you may need more or less protection. So now that we've talked about a lot of these electronics, you need to find a way to keep these electronics going. So some things like headlamps, GPSs, you can run those on AA's, AAA's, that sort of thing. Cameras usually do not, so you need to find a way to charge your cameras, your cell phone. Now anything else electronic you need to keep going, just have a way to do that. So I have these little power banks that I can charge up cell phones to, cameras, anything. But I also have a voltaic systems solar charger, and this is made for doing water trips with. It's waterproof. It's a waterproof panel, waterproof connections and cordage to a waterproof box that holds the laptop battery, which I charge everything off of. And I can keep all my electronics going with just the voltaic. I do have some other banks, as a backup with that. But it's a little pricey, but I can keep my phone, 2 or 3 other phones, both of my cameras, several things going for the duration of the trip just off this solar charger. And it hooks to the back of my kayak. It just soaks up sun all day, and very efficient, very good tool to have. And you just want to have protective casing for all these electronics. Anything that you need to keep protected, go ahead and invest in a good case. It'd be a bad idea to have a $400 cell phone in a $3 protective case. Just doesn't make sense. So this is my list of what I take on a week-long trip. You can add to that or subtract from that depending on your wants and desires. This is just a good comprehensive list to keep you going. I've used this list before. There's very little that I need that's not on this list. You can leave some of these things off, but pretty much everything on there is going to get utilized during the trip. So just figure out what you want to take out of here. Figure out what you need to keep yourself going at whatever level of comfort you want to keep on the trip. This gear list will allow you to do that. Thanks for watching.